Francis Rossi, folks, if you've not heard it, I just did an earlier review on a concert I seen last night at the Parole in Warrington. He was in our town last night on the 7th or 8th leg of his newest tour, acoustic, playing songs and chatting to the audience. Loved it, it was fantastic. If you get a chance, go and have a listen. I just thought I'd do something extra on Francis himself as a person, as a musician, as a star, if you like. And the reason is, to be honest with you, is I think Francis Rossi is somebody that the powers that be, when I say the powers that be, I mean in entertainment, have missed out on. I think they've missed a trick there with Francis. I really, really do. I've watched these talent shows for many a year, your X Factors, your Pop Idols and all of those, and then over the pond to the X Factor when they took it over there, and mainly American Idol. I watched American Idol for about 20 years. It's the best talent show they've ever had. It knocks our stuff into a cocktail, it really does. It's a fantastic show. It was helped by the fact that in Ryan Seacrest they've got a much better presenter than anyone they've ever had over here. That did help them. And although they've had some idiots on the panel there, they've also had 3 or 4 absolute superstars. But of the 3 or 4 superstars, I would suggest, for all many people have bought into the Simon Cowell being fantastic and really knowledgeable and a great guy and he's dead honest and he tells the truth and all that palaver. I've never bought into that. I'm somebody that feels he can see through Mr. Cowell. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's good at what he does and he's earned a hell of a lot of money, there's no doubt about that. But for me, Simon Cowell was just a Pete Waterman wannabe. I think Waterman was better than Cowell. Waterman went a bit further and some may say too far, especially with, was it Michelle McManus? I think he possibly did. But I got where he was coming from. But Simon Cowell is just his take on Pete Waterman, really. There's been better pundits on both shows, both over here and in America. But by far and away the best pundit I've ever seen on any of the shows, by far and away the best, and there's been 2 or 3 really good ones, was Steve Tyler out of Aerosmith. I don't know if anyone ever saw him in American Idol. He did about 2 seasons, that's all. He was absolutely sensational. Not good, but sensational. And at that time I'd say to her indoors, you know what they need in the X Factor here in Britain? I say, they should have looked at Elton John. Elton John would have been really, really good on X Factor. Thing is, he's too big for the show. He's making millions and millions and millions, doesn't want it, doesn't need it, and I don't think he would do it. But I said, where they're really missing out is, nobody has looked at Francis Rossi. And she said, Francis, I said, look, he'd be absolutely sensational. He may not want to do it. I think I read something about him about 6 or 8 years ago, where I think he said his hearing was suffering a little bit from, you know, the loud concerts he'd been involved in with Quo and whatever else. And I think I'd seen some things where all these pop stars, rock stars get asked about these talent shows. And I think he ran it down a little bit, if memory serves, X Factor, saying, you know, the way you start out is in pubs and on the circuits and this, that and the other, rather than this manufactured stuff on X Factor. And I sort of agree with him, I get that. But I thought, the great thing with Francis is, he's really to the point, he's really honest, but he's really, really, really funny, which is exactly what Steven Tyler was. We've seen a side of Steven Tyler that I didn't know existed. And I used to watch Steven Tyler and think, I wish we had Rossi in the UK doing it. I wish we had Rossi doing this. Because people would realise what I think I know. Rossi would have been even better than Tyler. Because Tyler, honestly, was brilliant. Francis had done a better job. And I just think it was an opportunity missed. He might not feel the same. He may never have wanted to do anything. But because I watched Tyler for 2 series and watched so much, I see Francis Rossi, if he's on This Morning, Good Morning Britain, the BBC, God forgive it, even Lorraine, who butts in all the time or asks him a question and answers every question for him and everybody else. Wherever he is, I watch him. Anytime he's on the TV, I watch him. If he's in one of the newspapers I buy and there's a piece in there, I'll make sure I read it. Anything on the internet, I listen to it. Anything on YouTube, I listen to. I just think he's brilliant. He's really entertaining. I'd love 3 or 4 hours in his company. I think it'd be great. And also I'd say, no, you've gone off on a tangent again. He'll say something, Francis, and tell his own joke about it and move on to something else. And what's he just said? What did he mean there? He tells stories sometimes as though we know what the story's on about, and he'll tell you the start and the ending, and you think, I'm not with you there. I don't think he knows he does it, but he does. But I find it all fascinating. all interesting. I just think he's great, and I think TV stations over here missed out on it. I don't think they realise how good he is. I think he would have been brilliant on something like X Factor. I really, really do. Give me him over Sharon Osbourne any day of any week. But no, he's got stories to tell, and I just think he's great. But as a performer, I think he's brilliant. I just, some knockers will say the fact that quoted 3 or 4 chords in the main. I think he's so much better than that. He plays his guitar with great clarity. Musically, he's fantastic. Singing-wise, he's still at the peak of his powers. Just absolutely brilliant. Seen him last night in the Parole. Fantastic. Really, really fantastic. I think the only downside I've got with Francis, and this is personal, I'll tell you this, not because he'll see it or so he'll see it, just because I tell everybody everything within this channel. I'm honest, and that's what I do. I seen him last year in Warrington, and I got hold of his number 2, I think it's Andy, who he plays with, only through something I seen on the internet there, and got a contact number for him, and I sent a message through, and I got a message or two back. A really nice fellow, really, really nice. And I said, I've done a review on the concert, let Francis have a look at it if he wants to. He might not want to, but, see what he thinks. And I think I got a nice message back. And I wanted to do something. I had an idea of meeting Francis last year somewhere at one of his other venues near Warrington. And he didn't want to do it. He did the old speak to the management. Funnily, I had something about 10 years ago, another idea that I think would have been good. I rang his management company, I think it's Simon Porter. Never got past the girl on the desk, and it's always, put it in an email. They all do that, and it just does my head in. That's the only downside with Francis as a person to me. Probably as a person, probably as a father and grandfather, musician, everything, he's brilliant at all things. But I think I could have seen him last night at 5:45 doing the old, where you pay extra, a meet and greet, and I thought, no, if the person can't see you without giving them extra money, I've given Quo and Francis lots of money over the years, and we'll keep doing it. I thought, no, that's not for me. I needed about 5 minutes of his time and then a 30-second message, and I could have done something for Francis that would have made him a few quid, I believe, and also raised his profile, which wouldn't have done anyone any harm. I had a cracking idea, and I've since tried to move it to Scott Gorham from Thin Lizzy, but I can't get hold of Scott because he'd be the number 2, but Francis would have been better. It would have suited Francis more. I thought to myself at the time, I just wish Francis was black and his name was Philip, as in Lynette or Lynette, however you want to pronounce it, because that was one difference between... You get musicians nowadays, same as you footballers. I'm not saying they think they're above us, but they're different from us. We're the great unwashed, and they're the performers. Although part of it is probably they think, I do what I do in my job. Doesn't mean to say if somebody wants to come and speak to me from something else, I've got to speak to them. No, it doesn't. But I always think if somebody wants 5 minutes of your time, 5 minutes isn't a lot. And if they're going to give you something that's ultimately not going to harm you and maybe aid you or help you financially, they're worth speaking to. People in sport nowadays and people in music don't do that. I always go back to the old days in sport, whereas Bill Shankly would be playing football on the green outside with young kiddies. He'd be inviting people, kiddies, not in a bad way, and older people into his house for a cup of tea with his wife. And I used to say, Shanks used to do that. Imagine Alex Ferguson doing that now. It never happened. Never happened. Things have changed. In the old days, these great sports people and musicians were more at one with the audience. They're not now, sadly, and Francis is the way of most. Whereas Phil Lynott was he just loved it, loved fame, loved the audience, loved the people. If Phil was still alive now and I tried to get hold of Phil and I had something through the back channel say, can I get to speak to him for 5 minutes at any concert? I've got something for him that'll probably make him some money. And he'd probably say, yeah, just tell him come down, I'll speak to him. Can I always say no? And that's the difference. But most people aren't like Lynott. Most people are more like Francis. And I get that, I suppose, but it's just disappointing. But it's life, it's the way things go. But do I hold anything against him? Do I, buggery? Did I go see him last night? Of course I did. Will I go see him next year? 100% I will. Just fantastic. Do I up Quo tour again? If they do, I'll go. But I don't mind either way. I'll see him with Quo or on his own. I'll take it always up. I think he is brilliant. If you get the chance to watch him, folks, on this tour or any future tour, he might not have many more years left. He tells us that himself. Go and watch him. I promise you, you'll be entertained. I do, honestly. I really, really, really do. He's just brilliant. He's just absolutely brilliant. And as I say, I just find him really interesting, really entertaining. I say, wherever he is, I'll listen because he's always got something to say and it's always pretty relevant. And I just think he's dead honest and to the point. And in a world where people genuinely aren't, I think that's a good thing. Don't you? I do. Yes, I do.